Number one, being able to choose your behavior in spite of your feelings and emotions. Being able to choose your behavior. All right. Have you ever made decisions, bad decisions in life, or business as a result of being emotionally hijacked? Think about that. Have you ever made bad decisions in life or business as a result of being emotionally hijacked? What were some of the consequences of making those bad decisions when you were emotional?
Welcome to the EQ for Entrepreneurs podcast. Like most business owners, you already know you need good business and marketing strategies to scale and be profitable. But at some point, you've hit the dreaded wall where you feel stuck and frustrated. EQ for Entrepreneurs is for business owners and leaders who are honest enough to admit that they just might be the ones holding their business back and are brave enough to change that.
We're Noble and Kathy, and every week we're having candid conversations about all things emotional intelligence and how growing that has allowed us to get out of our own way and is radically transforming both our businesses and our personal lives. This is the secret sauce strategy for modern entrepreneurs who are tired of hustling without seeing results and want to grow a business and a life that they love.
Welcome, entrepreneurs, influencers, and leaders, to this episode: 6 ways to get an unfair advantage in business. I'm going to share a couple stories, one from a military example of mine and then one from a business example of mine, that will hopefully drive a lot of these points home. These 2 stories reflect examples of when I did not take advantage of these 6 unfair advantages in my military or business experience. Now, this episode, I've got a lot of questions and thoughts that you guys are going to be able to chew on. I want to encourage you guys to really get the max value from this episode, to write down, maybe circle back around and write down these questions that I'm going to throw at you guys, because there are going to be a lot of these questions. And I know sometimes when there are a lot of questions back to back, your brain can kind of stop on that first or second one, and you miss the subsequent questions. Unfortunately, that's going to be the nature of this particular episode, with just so many questions that I feel are going to be very relevant to this topic based on these 6 points that I'm going to run through. So again, I really encourage you to take some time to go back through, listen to this episode, and write down the questions when you have the opportunity to do so. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, EQ for Entrepreneurs, just know I'm going to be looking at my notes a lot and referencing my notes just so I don't miss anything in this episode. There's going to be a lot of value. I'm really excited for this episode, because I really think it's going to help your emotional intelligence to the next level. Okay, so here's my military analogy, my military story. I was an infantry officer and a scout platoon leader in the 82nd Airborne Division, 1st Battalion, the 325th Airborne Infantry Regiment. If you're not military, that mean nothing to you, all those numbers together there. It was an airborne infantry unit, and I was the scout platoon leader. And at the time, there was maybe 30 of us, let's say, at a scout platoon. Maybe not even that big, maybe it was about 20. And we went to the Joint Readiness Training Center, called RTC, in sunny, tropical Fort Polk, Louisiana. Okay, so I was the scout platoon leader, so I'm, myself and what's called a platoon sergeant are kind of in charge of these 20 to 30 men when we went to do this training in Fort Polk, Louisiana. I was a relatively new scout platoon leader, and for those of y'all that know me know that I'm a very high energy guy. And typically, as a scout platoon leader, it may sound fun and exciting for some of you, maybe not in the military, but in the military, it's not a super exciting position to be in. in terms of my specific role as a platoon leader. The scout platoon leader typically maintains communication on the radio with the battalion, the higher unit that you're coordinating with, and you're not doing a whole lot more than that, and then coordinating, of course, with your respective squads in your platoon. That's pretty much where the excitement ends. The squads are the ones that are able to go out and do a recon and the fun recons and stuff. Well, here's what happened. Due to my no self-awareness, no self-management, no others awareness or others management skills at the time, I totally wanted to not sit in my little foxhole for 3 days, because every few days we'd move locations and stuff. We had just got there. We just kind of set up our patrol base. The platoon sergeant went to go coordinate with the battalion sergeant major on stuff, and so I'm sitting there with the platoon getting stuff set up for our patrol base at the time. My ADHD kicked in, and I said, man, forget this. I'm done sitting around twiddling my thumbs. I'm going to take a squad, one of the scout squads, and we're going to go on a recon. And not just that, I want to be the point man. So totally emotionally, my emotions took over. It is a decision that I wanted to do. Again, no self-awareness, no self-management, no others awareness or others management at the time, for the most part, in this arena. And I told the squad there, I said, hey, let's go. We're going to go on, and I'm leading the patrol. I'm going to lead the squad. And he's like, hey, sir, I don't think that's a good idea. And I said, look, I'm in charge. Let's go. And he's like, all right, sir, let's go. And so for those of you all that are in the military, know this is a really bad idea, not smart for the platoon leader to not only take a squad out on a recon with there's the radio telephone operator, the RTO was manning, and then we had a couple security guys for him in the patrol base. But essentially, the platoon leader should not be leading and being the point man for a squad, a scout squad on a mission. It's not, under normal circumstances, it's not a good idea. Well, and here's what essentially, now fortunately it all was fine. It all worked out. We didn't have any issues. We did a good recon and whatever. But I made a completely selfish decision that could have compromised myself, or one of my squads, the platoon, and ultimately the entire battalion, because of a decision that I wanted to make because of where my emotional space was. And I was not self-aware, and I didn't think through, like, okay, what are the consequences? Didn't think through any of that stuff. So as I unpack these 6 points of what helps give an unfair advantage in business, you guys will see, man, you'll be able to reflect back on the story and be like, man, this guy violated all 6 of these principles, basically. Well, here's my business analogy, my business story of what happened to me where, again, I violated all 6 of these principles that I'm going to share with you here in just a moment. So in business, I had a guy in my company that basically made fun of me for a decision that I had made for 11 months. He made fun of this decision that I made. Now, because, again, I lack self-awareness, I lack self-management, I lack others awareness, others management, social awareness, social management, depending on how you want to say it, I had no boundaries, no personal boundaries. I was an emotional stuffer and avoider. And if you've listened to previous episodes in our podcast, based on my childhood, I have become basically a 2 PhD person that's a PhD in stuffing and a PhD in avoiding my emotions. And so for months, I allowed this guy in my company to make fun of this decision that I had made. I just kind of blew it off. Well, what happened was, I didn't realize any of this stuff, but every time he makes fun of me, it's building up and building up and building up because I just stuff and avoid. Well, it all came to a head one night where I'm with my company, a lot of the folks on my business team, and he made fun of me again in front of the whole group because of this decision that I had made, again, 11 months earlier. I lost it. I completely shut down emotionally. I was completely upset. Now, I didn't, my physiology changed, my demeanor changed, my behavior changed. I closed off, I shut down. And that's how I reacted in the moment. Later on that evening, once our staff meeting was done, I called him up and literally for 45 minutes straight, cussed him out. Like cussed him out. 45 minutes. I was completely emotionally hijacked. I lost complete control. And now I was no longer driving my car. My emotions and feelings were 100% driving my vehicle, so to speak. Well, now the damage was done. I lost my total ability to connect with him because I eviscerated him, verbally, mentally, emotionally eviscerated him. All of that could have been avoided and prevented if I had boundaries from the first time he made fun of me for making that decision and I had addressed it right there. None of that would have ever happened because he would have stopped, or I would have, taken other approaches. But the bottom line is I would have addressed it. He would have stopped at some point, and the explosion, the nuclear bomb that went off would have been avoided. After a week or so of me calming down, probably at least a week, for it took me to calm down, I called him back, or we met. I don't remember if we met in person or I called him back, and I apologized profusely. But again, the damage was already done. And probably even to this day, there are still emotional consequences for him with me, even though I've apologized multiple times, genuinely, sincerely. And I even spent a year or two trying to restore the relationship. There are still emotional consequences because of the degree and the severity with which I completely lost my composure and cool. Okay, those two stories are perfect examples of when I did not have or take advantage of the 6 ways to have an unfair advantage in business, or in the first story in the military. All right, so 6 things. Here we go. Number 1, being able to choose your behavior in spite of your feelings and emotions. Being able to choose your behavior. All right. Have you ever made decisions, bad decisions in life, or business as a result of being emotionally hijacked? Think about that. Have you ever made bad decisions in life or business as a result of being emotionally hijacked? What were some of the consequences of making those bad decisions when you were emotional? Again, these are great exercises to journal when you have time. Maybe sit down and write some of these things down. Maybe pause the podcast, pause the YouTube video right now, and just think through that. What were some of the times you made bad decisions based on being emotionally hijacked, based on being super emotional? And then what were the corresponding consequences of those decisions, those bad decisions? Okay. Now think about that. It's important to kind of reflect on that. Now, what are the benefits of being able to choose your behavior in spite of your feelings? Whether you're, super emotional positively or negatively, the consequences can still be detrimental or even disastrous on both sides of that equation, on both sides of that coin. Whether you're too emotional positively or too emotional negatively, the consequences are still the same in terms of decision making, the outcomes of decision making. All right, But what are the benefits of being able to choose your behavior regardless of how you're feeling? Number one, you're aware of and informed by, but not controlled by your emotions. That's number one. Number two, the ideal decision-making state of mind is when the emotional side of our brain and the thinking or logical side of the brain are working in total tandem as like two basketball players on a basketball team making a fast break down the other end of the court, or the quarterback and the receiver, or the relationship between steering a wheel and the engine of your car, or how about the husband and wife dynamic in a family. So the better and more effective that those two parts of our brain can work together in harmony, in concert with each other, best state of mind to be in to make more effective decisions. Number three, you make the best decisions for your business, your team, your family, and yourself when both sides, both parts of our brain are working harmoniously. Four, you minimize the damage to yourself, others, your business or organization that you're a part of, that you're leading or running. You attract higher quality people, quality customers, quality employees, raving fans when you're able to choose your behavior instead of allowing yourself to be ruled or controlled by your feelings and emotions. Next, number six, you create this is huge, you create an emotionally healthy environment and culture, not just for you, but for your company, your customers, your staff to operate and grow in. And think about this. Have you ever been in an emotionally unhealthy or toxic environment or culture? And if so, how did that affect your performance? How did that affect the performance of your company or organization that you were a part of? What were the consequences of being in that toxic environment? But the bottom line is, it absolutely impacts performance 9 times out of 10. Now, think of the other side. When have you been a part of an emotionally healthy culture or environment? And what were the consequences? How did that team or organization or company run in that type of environment? All right, so those are some benefits of being able to choose your behavior instead of being controlled or ruled by our feelings and emotions. The ideal state, again, is we want ourselves to be the brain to be able to work in harmony and conjunction with each other. Okay, next the second unfair advantage in business here. Being more emotionally stable. Being more emotionally stable. What's the impact on yourself and others when you have been, or if you have ever been, emotionally unstable? What have been the impact on yourself and others when you have been emotionally unstable? Do you know anyone who is emotionally unstable? How do you feel about them? How do others feel about that person? How do they impact? What are the consequences? How do they impact those around them? Their family, their friends, their colleagues, their coworkers, their company, their staff, if they're entrepreneurs. Do you feel safe? Do others feel safe around somebody that is emotionally unstable? Most of the time, absolutely not. How is performance affected and impacted when you or your staff or your company or organization do not feel safe around somebody? Big consequences when you don't feel safe. So being more emotionally stable is tremendous. So what are the benefits to you and others for being emotionally stable? Number one, less stress. It's stressful being around somebody. Again, just ask my wife. For many years, I was this guy. Again, I am the poster child. This is why I'm doing this podcast, to hopefully share some lessons that I have learned through being emotionally unhealthy and emotionally unintelligent for most of my life. So I'm praying that some of you all can learn from my mistakes and learn from my failures here. But ask my wife again when what it was like, and maybe that'll be an episode. What was it like to be around your husband when he was completely emotionally unstable? It's stressful. It is so stressful. So boom. So you have less stress when you are emotionally stable and you're around somebody that's emotionally stable. And not just that, but obviously, many of us know this, that there are physical and physiological health benefits for less stress, for not experiencing or absorbing that stress. Number 2, more peace of mind. Number 3, a healthier state of mind. Number 4, the above lead to, so less stress, more peaceful state of mind, a healthy state of mind leads to better decision making. And we talked about the negative consequences in my military story and in my business story of my decision making when I was emotionally hijacked. So like negative consequences of not being emotionally stable. Number 5, emotionally, you create a healthier emotional environment and culture, which we discussed in the previous point there. People aren't walking around on eggshells around you. It's another benefit of being emotionally stable. Again, it changes the atmosphere. People are not always stressed. Oh man, am I getting Dr. Jekyll today? Am I getting Mr. Hyde today? Or even hour by hour, that can change too. You're more approachable for your family, your customers, your staff, your company. It's less exhausting. Man, being emotionally unstable, it was exhausting being emotionally unstable. Okay, next one. So now number 3 here, we're on number 3, the third advantage of in business of emotional intelligence, kind of being emotionally healthy. Number 3 here. Yeah, being more emotionally predictable. Being more emotionally predictable. What's the impact on yourself and others? So some of these same questions here. What's the impact on yourself and others for being emotionally unpredictable? Do you know anyone in your life that is emotionally unpredictable? Now it's a little bit different. Emotionally unstable and emotionally unpredictable, they're cousins, they're related, but there are some differences there. Do you have anyone in your life that's emotionally unpredictable? Have you ever had a boss that's ever been emotionally unpredictable? How do you feel about them? What was the impact of that person's unpredictability on you, on your performance, on your emotions, on the culture and environment that you had to work in? Okay, what are the benefits to you and others of being emotionally predictable? What are the benefits? Many of the same benefits that we mentioned previously. Also, it's easier for you and others to plan around somebody that when you are more emotionally predictable and when you're around someone that's more emotionally predictable. And how important is it for an entrepreneur, a leader, to be predictable, to plan? It's critical. Next one, it's easier, number 3, it's easier for you and others to think. Again, another critical skill for entrepreneurs and leaders is to be able to think. Well, when you're emotionally unpredictable, and it's tough to even think being emotionally unpredictable. If you plotted your emotions on a graph and it looks like an EKG monitor, try to plan and think when your emotions are constantly going up and down by the minute, by the hour, by the wind direction. Number 4, people and family don't have to be emotionally tense or jumpy around you when you're emotionally predictable. It's not emotionally exhausting to be around you. You're safe for others to be around when you're emotionally predictable. And again, safety is huge. I've read a lot of research on what happens in a number of books and studies that discuss, our body, our brains are constantly, like unconsciously, constantly assessing the safety of our environment. We're not even aware that we're doing it, but we're doing it. And any time that our brain senses a threat, boom, our brain goes into response/reaction mode. And so being safe and feeling safe, again, whether you're conscious of it or not, is a game changer as an entrepreneur in business and in leadership with whatever organization or industry space that you're operating in. Military, business, again, whatever space you're operating in. All right, next big one. So now we're on number 4, kind of hack, if you will, on or advantage of in business here. Being able to connect with your customers, your team, your staff, and personally your family, your children on a deeper level leads them to feeling heard and understood, which creates a deeper connection, which then creates a greater desire to do business together. So being able to connect with your customers, your team, your staff on a deeper level leads them to feeling heard and understood, which creates a deeper connection. And that deeper connection creates a greater desire to ultimately do business together. Okay, so some more questions for you. So have you ever been around someone that doesn't connect well? Do you know someone, or have you ever been around someone that does not connect well? What are the consequences? What's the impact on you and others being on the business end, on the receiving end of somebody who does not connect well with you? And so what's it like? How does it feel to be around that person? What's the impact? How about a business? Do you know a business that does not connect well? Do you want to do business with that company? Do you want to continue? Or how about this? How about a business that maybe you felt has done a decent job at connecting with its customers, with you for a period of time, but then all of a sudden, at some point, maybe they change management, they change leadership, they change ownership, and all of a sudden they stopped well with their audience, with their customer. How did you feel then? Did you still feel the same desire to do business with them, to engage in their product or services when they stopped connecting well with you as the customer? So again, think about that. It's really important. Okay, now let's look at the other side. Do you know a person or business that does connect well with others? Do you know, what's it like? How does it feel to be on the receiving end of someone that does connect well, of a business that does connect well with their audience, with you? How does it feel to be around that person or engage with that business? Do you want to do business with that person, with that company, with that organization? Do you want to continue to interact with them, engage with their product, with their brand? Okay, so really think through that. There's tons of benefits. Obviously, financially, there are tons of benefits for connecting well with your audience, with your target audience. How about what are the benefits of connecting with your staff, with your company? If you have employees, what are the benefits of connecting with your employees? Increased performance, more focus, more effectiveness, more efficiencies, greater culture, greater environment. We already talked about some of those other benefits. So really think a lot of benefits for connecting well, connecting on a deeper level, for making your customers and your staff and your team feeling heard and understood. How do you feel when you feel heard and understood? When is the last time you felt heard and understood? How did that feel? What was the impact on you? And I would bet that you remember the last time you felt heard and understood. What are the consequences? Really think about that, and how can you be more effective at connecting on a deeper level with your customers, with your staff, with your vendors, with your suppliers, so that they feel heard and understood. The consequences and the benefits are tremendous. Increasing your mental and emotional capacity. This is number 5. Increasing your mental and emotional capacity. Do you know someone that has very little mental and emotional capacity? Man, that was me. And still, I'm growing in this area. But man, before my emotional growth journey and before I started working and growing on my emotional intelligence, the second I started to feel a little overwhelmed, man, I would shut down. My stress would go through the roof, my adrenaline, and I would go straight into fight or flight. And oftentimes I would shut down, completely shut down. Inability to think. I wouldn't be able to process. I wouldn't be able to make decisions. It was paralyzing. So do you know someone that has very little mental or emotional capacity? How does that impact them personally? How does it impact or influence their organization that they're a part of? How does it impact their performance? How easily overwhelmed do you get? How often do you get overwhelmed? How effective are you when you get overwhelmed? So maybe think about that. Do some study, some reflection on the last time you got overwhelmed. What were the circumstances? What happened? What were the results? What were the consequences of you getting overwhelmed? What happened to your decision making when you get overwhelmed? Now, that's not to say that man, if you grow your EQ, like you're gonna have this unlimited capacity. No, we all have limits. We all have that's part of being human, the human experience. We all have our limits. But one of the benefits, one of the advantages of growing your EQ and getting more emotionally healthy is an increased mental and emotional capacity. Now, that does not mean that somebody that you know that does have a lot of emotional and mental capacity that guarantees they have a high EQ. That's not necessarily the case. Because you could have an increased capacity, mental and emotional capacity, because of your training, because of your upbringing, because of some of your strengths. So not a guarantee, but for what I have personally experienced is, as I get emotionally healthier, as my emotional intelligence increases and grows, I've noticed that my mental emotional capacity also is increasing, which is a huge blessing as an entrepreneur and as a leader and an influencer. All right. Lastly, number 6, being a more effective thinker. Being a more effective thinker. Do you know someone that is not a good or critical thinker? How does that impact them personally and professionally? And here's a perfect example. Look at all the people's lives that are impacted and almost dictated by whatever the media says. And the times we're living in right now, great examples of people's ability to think and not think. If it's because, again, we've all seen this. If Fox or CNN or a celebrity or a politician says something, well, it clearly must be the gospel truth, right? Of course not. They all have their angles, their agendas, their motives, and it's amazing just watching what's going on in our country, people's ability and inability to process information and think critically and think for themselves. How do emotions impact your ability to think? Now, again, some may take that immediately negatively, but it's also we need to be. That's part of emotional intelligence, is being able to consider the emotions, not be ruled and controlled by them, but to be aware of them, process them, and allow them to inform us so that we can make better decisions alongside, again, our logic side of our brain. We need both, is the bottom line. How do emotions help you think? How do emotions hurt your ability to think? So again, what can be detrimental is to lean too far either way. Either you make decisions based on logic, without considering the human or emotional component of a decision, or you make decisions solely based on your feelings and emotions. And we probably know people in both camps. People that are just solely logical, they have no social awareness or no social management, and it's painful. It's not effective. And then there's the other side too. We probably know people in the other camp that only make decisions on emotions and feelings. Again, watch the news, watch the media, and we see a ton of those people that are making decisions, extreme decisions, solely based on feelings and emotions. They don't know how to cope. They don't know how to process. So being a more effective thinker and as an entrepreneur is critical. So think about this. Can you be a better thinker? How can you be a better thinker? How important is thinking to you as an entrepreneur or a leader? What if you were 100% aware of your feelings and emotions and aware of others' feelings and emotions at any given moment in the operation of your business, in the operation of running of your organization, your company? What if you were 100% aware how your customers felt? Could you connect better? Could you serve them better? Could you lead them better? What if you were 100% aware of how your vendors or suppliers, the folks that you're doing business with, your business partners felt, or how your staff felt? If you're 100% aware of how your staff felt. What if you're more in tune with the market or your industry, the space that you're operating in? How effective are you at assimilating all the logical and emotional data points in your business and in your life to make the best decision possible? Could you be more effective at assimilating both of those emotional and logical data points? As you grow your emotional intelligence and you get more healthy emotionally, you will become a better and more effective thinker, not only in business, but in your life as well. It's going to impact every area of your life. Thinking is one of the hardest things to do, not just in life, but also business. So it's imperative to be as good a thinker as possible. But if you think about it, how many entrepreneurs work to improve their ability to think and process information, process emotions, process feelings? We're too busy working on our next sales funnel, our next marketing funnel, our social media strategy, our P&L, analyzing our P&L, look at our operations, look at our systems and processes. We need to invest in ourselves as entrepreneurs to be more effective at those 6 hacks that I just laid out for you guys, so we can be more effective in all those different areas. So in summary, we discussed 6 ways to give yourself an unfair advantage in business. Number 1, choosing your behavior regardless of how you're feeling. Number 2, being more emotionally stable. Number 3, being more emotionally predictable. Number 4, connecting more effectively and on a deeper level with our customers and our staff and our team. Number 5, increasing our mental and emotional capacity. Number 6, being a more effective thinker. Thank you so much for being on this emotional growth journey with us. If you would like us to come speak to your organization, your company, your business about emotional intelligence, the area of emotional intelligence, just email us at info@eqforentrepreneurs.com. Again, that's info@eqforentrepreneurs.com. We love helping you navigate the emotional journey of running your life and business by helping you grow your emotional intelligence.